All right, this is round one of the DMV Adults-Only Tournament. My first long classical tournament in a while. Time control is gaming 95 plus 10, and I'm playing Candidate Master. I actually didn't know he was already a master when I played him, but either way, with a USCF rating of 2197, he's about to be a national master if he wasn't already a master. And yeah, I have the white pieces. And before the game, he told me this is his first tournament in a year or so. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna play what I usually play and hopefully get a decent position. And a decent position I did get, and it got pretty wild, pretty insane, and it was pretty bad. Okay, I play E4, and he played the Caracan, and I play the Fantasy, and I get a lot of really, really fun games out of this. I have my best wins and my worst losses with and against this opening. He trades and plays E5, which is definitely the most combative way to approach, and we both develop our bishops. He plays knight d7. That I was threatening to sacrifice my bishop on f7. So for example, knight of 6 here, I can sacrifice and go knight e5. And but after 97, if I do the same thing, sacrifice, then no matter which knight check I do, he can take or take and then take my queen next. So yeah, not very good. So he goes knight d7. I castle, threatening to take on f7 again. He blocks the f file with his knight and develops. And I play c3. So now if he takes on d4, I can take back with the pawn and have a big white center. And he plays bishop d6, developing. I develop. He gets out of the pin and connects his rooks, and he could castle queenside if he wants to. He definitely can, but he doesn't. He just castles, and I go queen e1. I'm going to go queen h4, rook a e1, and then maybe king h1, and then proceed with the game. So I'm still in this like basic opening setup, and I'm still just getting my pieces on squares where I want them to be. He plays b5, and he thinks for a while here, actually. He thinks for like at least like 10 minutes. And after b5, I just kind of like instantly go bishop b3. So at this point, I have like at least a 15-minute time advantage ish, because he's taking his time. And this is the but meanwhile, I'm basically in book because like yeah, this is a setup based opening. At least this part of the fantasy is. And basically, all you need to know is that white never wants to take the pawn on e5, and black never wants to take the pawn on d4 because then white has a big white center that's unopposed. So usually this tension between the d4 pawn and the e5 pawn just remain forever. And he goes rook a8. I give my queen to the king side, and maybe I'm gonna like try to double up here and then get my knight in and start attacking him. That's kind of the idea. He takes on f3, kind of unprovoked. Um, and I think for a while here, because I don't want to take with the knight, because then maybe him taking on d4 is actually good, because if I take back, then this e pawn is just hanging, which doesn't seem very good. So yeah, I have to be a little bit careful. And I was thinking about taking with the pawn, actually. Like, legitimately, I was thinking about doing this, because I really wasn't sure. Like, because now if he takes, now look like this center is really really nice, and I can still play e5, and my e4 pawn is very solid here. I just wasn't sure if I really wanted to do this. Like I think, like h3. And I still want to go f4 and e5, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. And I thought it was a fine. I didn't think it was bad or at all, but I thought like taking with the rook is definitely more thematic. You want to double up on the f file and put more pressure. And another thing I had to consider was what happens if he takes on d4 and plays queen b6. And I decided, before I took back with the rook, I decided that I was going to go bishop e3. It's defended by my rook, so now I can play the move e5. Of course, I can't play e5 now because he could just take it, which doesn't seem that very good. Um, he told me after the game, so this is a no engine recap until the very end. However, he told me after the game, because he was checking the game with an engine, he told me after the game that actually, if I just double up the rooks, then I am +2. So what does that mean? So I think like if he goes all in and takes this pawn, and I take back, and if he ever goes 95 or something like that, I can just sacrifice the rook, and I'm going to checkmate. That's it. so so yeah. So Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think about that. It makes a lot of sense now, and of course, if he does nothing, then like I don't know, if he goes like rook e7, for example, which does nothing in this position. I mean, it guards f7 one more time, but that's not really important. Then I can still sacrifice a rook and maybe sacrifice a second rook too, just because I can, and then I'm going to be checkmating again. So yeah, so I would have been significantly better if I just doubled up my rooks, but instead I took back because I thought this was going to be fine. Like I was actually, like I knew c5 was probably coming, and I was going to meet c5 with e5. And if he takes, I was going to take, and if he takes, I'm going to go knight e4. And I thought this position was simply great for me. If he does not sacrifice his rook, what does he do? If he takes, then I can just probably just take and go rook h3, and he's getting checkmated. Nothing he can do. His rook blocks in his own king, and his other rook blocks in his other rook. So now it's game over. So I actually thought like I thought it was like straight up winning here. I thought he had to sacrifice the rook, and then he played knight takes f6, and I did begin to realize that actually this isn't that easy because I can never take on e3 because he just pins and wins. So I can never take with on e3 with any piece, and my light square bishop does not help my case. And this knight can actually probably be pretty tricky here, so I'm actually not sure. Well, I learned after the game that in this position, I'm not better. I'm actually, he told me after the game that this position is minus 1.5 or whatever for black. So what I thought was winning was, 94. Forcing him to sacrifice an exchange is actually better because his pawn on e3 is so strong, and as we'll see later in the game, he has so many tactics revolving around it. But after he takes on f6, I decided to sacrifice my rook back. And I thought this was really, really neat because now I'm going to play bishop c2. Admittedly, I did think for like 37 minutes on the move bishop c2, even though it is a pretty natural move, because I thought I had more of a knockout punch. Like, one of the things I was calculating, like I was calculating bishop c2 for a while, and then I was calculating queen g5 and queen g4 and queen f5, and I was, oh my gosh, and the bishop's on c2 already, and I can just checkmate him. And like, if I go queen g5, then he's forced to go here, and then if I go here and here, then he doesn't have enough time to go rook g8 and rook g7, which is just wrong. But honestly, the alternative of not sacrificing my rook is also pretty bad, because his knight can cause a lot of damage. So yeah, I go bishop c2. He goes rook d8, and from afar, I thought this was actually pretty good for me because his king's in the center, but it's actually very safe in the center, and it's actually my king that's unsafe. And here, I probably go about this for the wrong way. I mean, I don't know. I probably like it's really tough because he's threatening so many things. Like let's say I try to blockade this e3 pawn and I try to put my bishop on e2. What I guess he's gonna go check and queen f2, and now he's threatening queen pawn to e1, and I guess my bishop guards f1. So actually, I guess he's not threatening queen to f1. But here, like, I actually don't even know what I'm supposed to do. I guess actually I do defend everything because I can go check here and go here, which this looks good. So maybe he doesn't. Maybe if bishop d3, maybe. I actually don't know. I thought he had something better than this. Maybe check here and queen e3. Maybe this is the way for him to proceed. He keeps an eye on my bishop and keeps an eye on the promotion square. And then if here, then I can probably go here, attacking the bishop. And if you ever go give a check, then I can just go here. Oh wait, no, you can't give that check because of the queen. So maybe if you ever go queen h8 check, then I just go king e7, and it's game over for white. Like if you move your queen, then I could take your bishop, but I could also probably just go. Actually, yeah, probably just take your bishop. Actually, probably just take. And yeah, game over. Okay. So, yeah. So yeah, I thought here I was better, but I'm actually much worse here. I'm actually just losing. I go bishop e3, and and he instantly plays rook d7, and now I'm getting lower and lower on time. I have like 20 minutes now compared to his like 45 minutes or 50 minutes. I thought he might go queen c7 here. I thought he might do that, and I was hoping he would, because then of course I can just go check, and if he goes here, then I can take with check and not get pinned, and then if he goes here, then it's a repetition. And he eventually has to lose this e3 pawn, but he of course doesn't do that. He goes rook d7, which is much better, and now I go king f1 because I felt like I had to, because e2 and queen f2 is just too big of a threat. One thing as I was calculating was queen h8 check, king e7, queen g8, and there's no possible way for him to defend his f7 pawn. But I just couldn't. But there was no knockout punch. Like he goes e2 check, I go king h1, goes queen f2, and he's studying queen f1 check, and e1 equals queen checkmate. And if I take on f7, then he goes king d8, and yeah, I have like one more check or two more checks, but at the end of the day, well, I guess in this case, I continue to have more checks. So he would probably at some point, um, at some points, what is the best way for him to proceed? After this check, I could just go. He could just go bishop c5, and actually I do have this check. That is actually really annoying for him. And then, yeah, actually that's really annoying. He'll go rook e7, the check here. This should be winning for black. So that probably, no matter what, it's still winning for black. But it's a little bit tricky. But anyways, there was no knockout punch. There was no checkmates, and if he gets e2 and queen f2 in, I just lose the game on the spot. So he goes rook d7, and here queen d5, excellent move, because I mean you're just centralizing your queen, and now there's queen f4 check. So originally I was really trying to make rook d1 work, but in any case, queen f4, queen f2, and e2, and I just lose the game on the spot. So I decide to cover both queen d2 and queen f4 by going check after king e8 or rook d1. So now everything's covered. If he goes in, then I just take this pawn and I'm doing okay. But the thing is, he doesn't do that. He goes queen e5, and now he's threatening e2 check. That's just a fork. And he's also threatening queen f5 check, which I defend against one threat but not the other, and I resign. So yeah, the game was pretty simple in the fact it's a very quick game, and like I just really underestimated just how safe his king was. And it's something that like I looking at it now, it makes a lot of sense, but I just don't know. Like it should be obvious to me that like if I see this position in my head, it should be obvious to me that his king is safer than mine, and that the threat of e2 is really bad. But the thing is, I didn't recognize how bad the threat of e2 was. I thought I was still doing good in this position from afar, but just the fact that e2 and I thought my rook always guards it, and I can always bring my queen back to guard it. So I never really took it that seriously until it was too late. So Porter played pretty well. I can't complain too much. She's a much better player than me, and yeah, I mean it sucks to have a winning position or a significantly better position out of the opening and not take advantage of it against someone much stronger than you, because how often is that going to happen? And the answer is not very often. So, on to there. I'll hit the game review, and I'll see you guys next one.